Hey there! We'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you're helping us spread the word and connect with more amazing people like you.
Welcome to Webe Pärents, where parent doctors Matthew Lederman and Alona Pulde explore current parenting topics, share stories, and help bring families closer together.
Hello, and welcome to Webe Pärents, where we explore the joys and challenges of parenting and help families grow closer through connection, compassion, and real-life tools. Hi, I'm Dr. Alona Pulde.
And hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Lederman.
And today we're diving into a conversation that's both deeply personal and universally relevant. How to teach our children compassion in a world that feels more divided than ever.
And before we jump in, please take a moment to subscribe so you never miss a chance to grow alongside us as we navigate the parenting journey together.
And when you subscribe, you're joining a community of families committed to raising kind, resilient kids, even in challenging times like these. You know, when we were kids, we could argue over whether Batman or Wonder Woman was better, and we'd still be best friends.
Right, as long as you agreed that it was Batman.
Or Wonder Woman.
Well, seriously, though, who is better, Batman or...
Oh, please.
You're like, it's hands down.
Hands down.
Hands down. I like Wonder Woman, too. So, no, but seriously, now it seems like you say one wrong thing and you're unfriended, unfollowed, maybe even uninvited to Thanksgiving, which may or may not be a bad thing. But that the fragility of the connection, it puts me into this sense of sort of threat physiology. Like at any point, important relationships could be gone. I could be thrown out of the tribe, which physiologically speaking is quite dangerous. You know, we need to be in the tribe to survive. So this fragility is quite concerning.
Yeah. And in the middle of all of that tension are our children, watching how we handle disagreements or don't.
Exactly. And that's what they learn. And we wonder why generation after generation continues to do things that we do. And it's not so much what we say, they model what we do.
Absolutely. It really feels like something has shifted. What used to be space for healthy debates now feels like really dangerous ground. It's almost come to the point where we are afraid to disagree, even with the people that we love, just like you said, being ousted from the tribe that's most important to us. And in that fear, we're losing something really precious. We're losing an ability to stay connected when we don't see eye to eye.
Yeah, that's the crux of the problem is how do you stay connected with someone when you don't share a reality with them, or the way of navigating that challenge or meeting that need is different for you than it is for them.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how some people, I mean, that's at nonviolent communication, the foundation of conflict is at the strategy level, not the needs level. So we all have a need for safety, but some people choose to meet that need with a strategy of getting a gun. Someone else might get an alarm system. Someone else might live in a large building with lots of people. All of them are meeting needs for safety. But if you try to argue about whether it's a gun is better or a group of people is better or an alarm system is better to meet your needs for safety, you're going to derail and disconnect very quickly.
I think that you nailed the core of the issue is that we're wrapped in each other's strategies, but we're not even making space to consider different strategies. We just are very attached to this is the right way and this is the wrong way. And you're either in the right tribe or the wrong tribe. And that's what today's episode is going to be talking about, really. It isn't about changing anyone's mind. It's about protecting our hearts and our homes and the emotional safety of our children in a world where differences now kind of feel like deal breakers.
Yeah, and people have to hide their differences or find a silo of people that share the same beliefs. And that's very concerning. There's lots of people out there that are struggling, and they might even have beliefs or thoughts that aren't kind or aren't accepted by others, but they're keeping them to themselves because it's more dangerous to risk alienation than it is to try and share those and heal them. And I think that if our goal is healing, I was actually just talking to my friend yesterday about this. If our goal is healing, then how we respond to people who think and see differently than we do is the key to whether that healing is going to happen. And if we react and judge and alienate, we're going to thwart all healing. And if we allow these differences to come out and to see each other and the needs they're trying to meet despite those differences, all of a sudden, I think we can come closer and we can heal.
The image that I got right now is we have regressed to a childlike state of either submitting or rebelling to a given situation. So either we give up our authenticity to belong and fit in, regardless of what we're really feeling, which is such a dangerous and fragile state to be in. I can't show up as myself. I have to show up as this facade, and I have to keep the facade going in order to be part of the group. Or we rebel, and wherever there's a moment where a belief of ours is challenged, we brace, retreat, or we go to war. And we've lost the ability to advocate for ourselves with compassion and agency in a way that cares about us and cares about whoever we're engaging with. And our children are right in the middle of it.
And that's the piece for me that is inspiring for me to take action and speak about this, but also brings a lot of sadness when I see the impact on children.
Yeah.
And the hate that is spreading.
Yeah. Because it's not just political, it's not just societal, it's coming into our homes. Families arguing over dinner tables, and then there's silence to avoid conflict. Or kids parroting judgmental language they've heard from adults, but having no idea what they're actually saying. Or even parents walking on eggshells with friends or family to keep the peace. And that's what children learn to do with their own friends.
Yeah. And it's so challenging when the kids hate the haters and they think that they're doing they're upholding like this social value by hating the haters. And to me, there's almost this mentality of it's okay to judge as long as you judge the way I'm judging, instead of saying, hey, let's not judge at all, let's not hate at all. We can judge what meets our values and doesn't meet our values. But if, for example, this happens a lot in politics, we were talking about this the other day, that if you think it is okay to have same-sex marriage, then the people that don't approve of that, if we hate them and judge them as these evil, closed-minded people, in my opinion, we're no different. And how can we get our needs met for inclusion and care for all people without hate? That's the goal.
And on so many levels, the fragility of that becomes clear. Even the notion of hating the haters. We are now stepping into the shoes of those that we're judging. And which is what you said. And the scary part of that is that, especially in politics, it changes so often who the power is coming from and who aligns with that and who doesn't, that if you're spending 4 years not on how to make the world around you great, but on how to screw the other guy, then of course you're going to be afraid when governments change and now it's not your party or your representatives anymore. Because you just spent 4 years trying to get revenge on them. What do you think they're going to be doing now that they're coming into power?
And then it's like kicking the can down the road. So then 4 years from now, there's a big switch. The pendulum swings back the other way. And now the other side goes to their hate and enforce policies that support their hate.
Exactly. And you see it, it's not just in politics. You see it in social situations at school. There's a group that happens to be popular and they treat everybody else poorly, and then they lose popularity. Another group comes up and becomes popular and they do the exact same thing.
Or a group is, if there's one or two leaders and they've been treating the whole group poorly, if enough of the people in the group that are being treated poorly get frustrated and get rid of their fear that they're going to be outcast if they stand up against this, then they all come together and decide we're going to create our own group and hate the leaders that were mean to us.
Exactly.
And we're going to be mean back to them.
Exactly.
And it's just this really sad ripple effect.
Yes. There's a growing sense that love, safety, belonging, they're now all conditional, and they're based on what we believe or don't believe. Whose side are you on? But here's the truth. We can disagree without disconnecting. And when we model that for our children, we teach them one of the most powerful skills they'll ever need.
And that starts in myself. I notice that I can't think without judgment very well. Like I still, as hard as I've worked in nonviolent community, it's just, I had 40 plus years of conditioning. It's like trying not to think in English. Really, really hard. But I can identify those judgments and transform them and translate them to my feelings and needs. And that's where the power is. I think if people are going to try not to have judgments, or they think judgments are wrong or bad, you're not going to be able to be successful, or it's going to feel almost too hard. So I don't know. What do you think about that? This idea of transforming judgments in our heads.
I really like that actually, because I think it is, you're right, a more realistic and doable action is not to believe that we can eliminate judgments that have accrued over, years and years and decades, but to note that our judgments are messages, and oftentimes they're default messages, and an opportunity for us to grow from them, and also an opportunity to identify the needs behind them. We're making judgments there to meet some needs, whether they're needs for protection or safety or, whatever comes up for us, consideration, care, to take that opportunity and use those messages. One, you can transform, but two, also to connect to yourself and say, all right, what am I actually needing here that is resulting, what needs are not met that are resulting in these judgments?
Yeah. I mean, even last night it happened when Kylie was going into the bed late and she turned the light on, even though Jordan was sleeping, and turned the light on while Jordan was sleeping to get something before she went to bed. And my immediate thought was, why the heck would she turn the light on when someone else is sleeping? That's so inconsiderate. That was the thought. I didn't choose to think that way. It just, whoop, that's what popped into my head. And then taking a second to say, well, that doesn't meet my need for consideration, which is different than she's being inconsiderate. So it's taking a moment to not speak from that judgment place. It's to pause and shift. And then ideally to get curious, because I have to assume that she values consideration too. If I don't have that assumption, if I assume she's this bad kid that I have to mold into considering other people versus no, she values consideration. And when I came from that energy, I was able to guess that, she probably assumed Jordan had her eye patch on so the light wouldn't bother her. And sure enough, Jordan happened to not be wearing it last night, but she did assume that Jordan had it. So when I said didn't meet my need for consideration, she was basically thinking, wow, I didn't realize Jordan didn't have her eye patch on. Of course. So she did value consideration too. So that could have been a big mess if I didn't catch the judgment and translate it and then see her good intention and check in with her too.
And I love that example, and I'll raise it one, which is in this situation, it sounds like Kylie was thinking she was meeting needs for consideration, but even assuming that she did something that didn't meet needs for consideration, the jump to she is now an inconsiderate person because she, on one occasion, didn't meet needs for consideration in the way another person would have enjoyed. There's a really big disparity between she made a mistake or there was a misunderstanding or who knows versus this is who she is and now that's how I see her. And I think that happens more often than we realize.
Yeah, I like that. That's really important, that even if she missed the need for consideration in that moment, it doesn't mean she doesn't value consideration.
Right.
It just means she happened to overlook it or disconnect from it or not be aware of it.
What's helpful for me is to keep a couple of really helpful thoughts in my own head. The first is that your values are best taught through example, not argument. So kids learn how to engage by watching how you respond, especially when it's hard. And if there's fear-based attack versus curiosity and conversation, that's what they're going to learn and pick up as well.
Yeah, I noticed that's really helpful. For example, if I'm upset at you or I'm reactive, and I'll be in the car with the kids driving them to school, and I'll say, "Oh, I'm really frustrated around something that mom did, but I want to try and come at it with connection, but I have a judgment in my head first, and I'm going to try and translate it. Maybe you guys can help me." So I bring them in with not to try and vent and prove that you're this bad person, but saying, hey, I want to communicate around an unmet need with connection towards you. And they enjoy that.
I'm sure. And you're teaching them to recognize their own judgments and to practice transforming and translating them so that they're not, the purpose is not to create an enemy image, but to find a way back to connection.
Right.
So I love that. Another one is that disagreement is natural, but disconnection is a choice.
Oh, I like that.
So it's okay to not align. We don't have to agree on everything. Actually, if you think about it, out of our differences, that's what keeps life interesting. If we were all the same, it would get pretty boring.
The problem is when people disagree around something that's particularly sensitive, and then there's so much despair and they need empathy, and it's so activating that they just need people to agree with them or get empathy, but you're trying to get empathy from someone who's sharing a different view, it becomes challenging. Like if we just disagree on what flavor of ice cream we want to get.
That's a big one.
That's a big, you and I fight that a lot, but in general, if the stakes are higher, this can get a little messier. There can be an empathy collision more likely.
Absolutely. But I also think, and that leads into the next one, is that compassion doesn't require agreement. It requires courage. So when we look at those situations, even when they're heated, even when they're sensitive, to remember that we can come at it with compassion. That doesn't mean that I agree with you, but what it does mean is that I'm still seeing the humanity in you and you're seeing the humanity in me, even if we're not aligned on a particular subject. Yep. And even if it ultimately means, hey, you know what? We can't align, and I also don't see a way that we can continue this relationship. This level of disagreement is so intense for me. You can still do that with compassion and care and connection, even if you have to walk away.
Yeah. That's the ideal place to be. You can walk away with care versus walk away with harshness and sort of a punitive energy. I think it's what also was a game changer for me was when I realized you can have more than one reality. So I'm empathizing with this person's reality. I'm not agreeing with their reality, but I can empathize with it. That actually comes up a lot with clients when I'm working with couples. And I'll tell them, hey, if you hear me empathizing with your partner's reality, it doesn't mean I agree with it. In fact, I may not agree with either of your realities. And that doesn't really matter right now. What matters now is that you get a sense that I understand and see your reality, and I see the impact and the pain stimulated from your reality, and that I care about that.
That is a hard one to wrap your head around for a lot of people, is that empathy is not agreement.
Right.
But I think, the more that we can practice empathy, the more we see the strength in that practice.
Yeah, because what's the point of agreeing or disagreeing? It's often to get a sense that you're understood and heard and cared about.
And seen, yeah.
And if you're trying to get them to agree with your reality, it makes it much harder to get those needs for being heard and understood and seen met. So let go of them agreeing with it. And I'll find it helpful to say, hey, even if you don't agree with my reality, can you empathize with it? Can you just get how this reality is stimulating me in the way it is? That makes it really helpful. The same with the kids. If the kids have this reality that I'm just like, whoa, I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm just with it. I'm with them in their struggle. Or sometimes they'll share with me, I'm so torn, I don't know what to do. And my instinct is to be like, this is very simple. I know exactly what you should do. But that's not, they're wanting me to see their tornness and be with them and connect with them around that. Because often if they're torn about two things and I tell them what to do, they'll tell me why that's not going to work. And the other issue is more of an issue than I'm seeing. So empathize with the reality. It's very important with kids too.
And, even in the subtleness of how you said that, and I want to emphasize that because I think it's important. It's my reality versus the reality.
Right.
And I think that's where, a lot of society's getting stuck is it's not, this is my reality, this is the way that I'm seeing the world, or this is the way that my group is seeing the world. It's, this is the way of the world.
Exactly.
So I think even that is an elevation in getting more connected versus disconnected.
And that,
so I really like that.
And when you can do that, it makes all of these tough topics so much easier to talk about.
So if you've been listening to us for a while, we get a lot of questions about what to do in tricky parenting or relationship moments.
Yeah, and if I'm being real, I'm asking Alona those same questions all the time. I get into those same tricky moments as everybody else does. And as much as we wish we could be there for each other in those exact moments, we just can't always be.
Yeah, that's why we partnered with the amazing team at Connectin to create something we truly believe in, an AI coach called Amari. And we didn't just lend our names, we helped build it and train it and brought in everything we've learned about emotional healing, connection, and communication.
Yeah, we spent years training and learning, and we've created Amari, who is so calm and grounded, listens deeply and responds with warmth, clarity, and compassion. There's no judgment, no reactivity. In fact, we tasked our children with trying to get Amari reactive, and they still haven't succeeded. It's just steady support when you need it most.
We use it ourselves all the time, especially when we feel stuck or overwhelmed. And Amari's really helped us pause, reflect, given us insight that helps us come back to each other.
Yeah, we designed Amari to help you strengthen the relationships that matter most, starting with the one you have with yourself.
And we are so excited that you can try it now at webeparents.com and click on Webe Connectin with a K to sign up. And when you have your Amari moment, please let us know, as we'd love to hear about it. So what is the tool that we're bringing in today?
So the tool, the 3C bridge, curious, compassionate, and connected. The tool is about creating a pathway through disagreement, not around it. We're not trying to avoid it. We're trying to connect through it. Whether you're talking to a family member who sees the world differently, or you're responding to your child repeating something that's upsetting, this 3C bridge helps you stay grounded and connected. And if that's your goal, connection, this is the way to go. So step one, get curious. So instead of reacting, pause and ask, what's behind this view? Because curiosity shifts us from judgment to discovery. And that shifting from curiosity is a very grounded approach. It means you're not in reactivity. Step two would be stay compassionate. So that starts with how you show up, not just in the type of words you choose, but just in how are you mobilized, intense and aggressive and have a harsh tone. So you can stimulate compassion just by speaking gently and slowing it down. And remember, this person is more than their opinion. This is one topic, one opinion. This person is a lot more than that. Because what I found is that even if I scare somebody or am so harsh, or I intellectually argue, in a way that they just, submit to my views, I still don't feel good. So it's this compassion. I want connection more than I want agreement, even though sometimes initially, if I'm reactive, I might think I want agreement. So compassion isn't agreement. It's emotional safety. And to me, that, especially over the years, that's become my priority over agreement. And then step three is build connection. So find something human and shared, a hope, a value, a fear. If you can see the humanity in the other person, you're heading towards connection. So we see it differently, but I think we both care about making the world better would be an example. Hey, we don't have to see it eye to eye, but we're both trying to make the world a better place. And the way you think we should make the world a better place is different than the way I think we should make the world a better place. Can we connect that we both have different realities around that, but we both value making the world a better place? That's where connection starts.
Yeah. I think I have a wish beyond that, which, we do see, we may find ourselves in situations where we see the world differently. But if we can get down to the needs that we're trying to meet, and then the ability to collaborate together to try and find the option that works for as many situations as possible, as many people as possible, I think that's the dream. And I think what happens sometimes is when we're focused on what's ours, or about revenge, or about sticking it to others, or me versus them, we create this landscape where bitterness replaces collaboration, and the ultimate goal becomes punishing others versus helping them progress or thrive. And when we have that energy, there's no way that you can bridge gaps.
And a lot of times people don't realize this, but when you are punishing or trying to stimulate pain or hurt in someone else, you're still trying to meet needs. And if you're clearer about the needs you're trying to meet, it often can be helpful. So for example, when one kid is very young and they hit another kid, often they have a need for empathy. They want this, which is basically, I want the other person to feel the pain I'm feeling. So you hurt them so they know how badly you're hurting. It's a tragic strategy to meet a need for empathy. You can hurt somebody else because you want this to matter. Like, this is really important. If it hurts them, they'll realize how much this matters. And also predictability. Sometimes you want them to do something different in the future. And if you hurt them, they'll remember not to do that again in the future. So it can meet needs for predictability and mattering. Sometimes if you stimulate pain in someone, you'll meet a need to be heard, you think, because, hey, you're going to get their attention. And empathy. So these are very important needs, but we can get our need for empathy and to be heard and for this to matter and predictability. We can do that in a way that doesn't stimulate pain, because there's a huge cost to that strategy too.
I agree.
How would this look? How would this look if we were going to show people going from no skills to pro skills?
Well, I love the tool that you shared. And I think that it really goes against a lot of, and I'll include myself in that, a lot of our default thinking when we are in a state of reactivity,
Mhm.
where you don't want to get curious, you want to be judgmental, and you want to shut it down. Yeah.
You've been in that state? I
Oh,
don't know what you're talking.
oh, oh, many times.
Well,
But
that's
yes,
why. But that's why in reactivity, you can't connect. You can disengage with kindness and care, but you can't
but
connect.
it's a vicious cycle because, yes, I agree with you completely. And I think the courage and the first step is to come to agreement that there needs to be a break in the cycle. Because what happens is, as long as I worry that you will not make space to give me empathy, to hear or see me, or aim to understand my reality, even if you don't agree with it, then the more I have no desire to be curious about you. I'm going to do the same to you. Why would I see you when you don't see me? So we perpetuate that cycle. And the only way to break it is to consciously say, I have to be the first to show up in this way, to model this path, to remember that the only way out of darkness is light. But that's hard,
Yeah.
right? And
That, that's why we tell people to memorize a statement like, "Hey, I can't think of anything that's going to support us. I can't think of anything to say that's going to support us right now, and I want to because I love you. So I'm going to take 20, 30 minutes to collect my thoughts, and I'm going to come back and revisit this with you." So something like that is when you're reactive. And one of my mentors, Mary McKenzie, who's an MVC trainer, said to memorize a line like that. And it's so helpful to have that in your arsenal because then you can disengage, but it's very important to tell them, hey, I want to say something constructive and I can't, but I want to, and I love you, and I'm going to be back. I'm not just walking away because a lot of times when people walk away, they're fearful to be abandoned. But no, I'll be back because I care about you. And that care to me is essential for disengaging when you're really activated because you can't empathize with somebody. Now, if you can get to the point once you've calmed yourself that you can say, hey, would you like some empathy for your reality of what's going on here? Now they're going to say, oh, okay, great. And then you give them empathy, but your focus is on them, not arguing your point.
yeah.
So I like that. And that to me is an important skill to have.
Yeah. And that's why it starts at home, where you have built trust with the people that you're living with. And that's the gift that we can give our children, is stepping into this safe space where they can start practicing it differently. And so what does that look like at home?
No skills to pro skills.
Our kids sometimes come home and parrot what their friends are saying, whether it's about politics or about some social media influencer. And my instinct is to roll my eyes and think, oh my God, I know this is not coming out of their mouth. So where do they hear this? And I just get really tight and irritated which is ironic, because that we're trying to teach them something different. And here they have thrown all of that out the window,
Yeah.
and brought a whole, just defaulted.
So we lock them in the room, make them listen to the podcast for a couple hours.
Right.
That's the punishment.
Exactly. But but what am I actually modeling for them is that if they come in with an opinion, I completely disregard it, because it's not what, how we have kind of structured our home. So that is an example of no skills.
And then if you took a breath and you asked them, hey, tell me more, what makes you feel that way? You sort of feel your own feet on the floor, stay calm, stay open. And you always have one hand on the eject button where you can use that line that we just said to memorize. So if you get too reactive, pull the button and just say, oh, I'll be back in 30 minutes. But I want to say something more. I love you. I care. So be ready, because at any point they can say something that you immediately want to jump on or is particularly activating. I think that's important, that one hand on both.
Absolutely. And I think remembering that my kids are not me, and they absolutely have the right to their own opinions. And I think what is exciting is the opportunity to get curious. So I love that. They come in, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, where is that coming from? But if I can get curious and say, oh, what about that did you like? Or tell me more. Or whatever that is, to build that connection. It always, I can say always here, really, it always feels so much better.
Yeah. So anytime you can model that calm, that checking in, I'll sometimes even own, hold on a second, I'm caught in my head with a thought and I'm just translating it. Give me a second here. Modeling respectful language, being able to say things like, hey, we see things differently, but I know they're coming from a place of care. So let's try and figure out where that place is, so we're both aware of it. Any type of language that brings you closer together and models that for them. Not that you're getting it perfectly, but that you're aware when you're sort of veering off the path of connection and you're showing them how to get back on the path.
Yes. I love that. And I love what you just said. We see things differently, but I know they're coming from a place of care. I know that in the same way that sometimes I wince when the girls come and say things that they've heard at school, is when they say things that I've heard myself say. And then it checks me, in this very humbled situation where I'm like, oh, I can't believe, that's my influence. That's on me.
It's like, of all the things I've told you, that's the one that
right. That's the one you're gonna remember.
There's so much good stuff that I share in your picture.
Right.
Bringing it home.
All right. So how do we bring this home?
So I love our explain, invite, model practice.
Yeah.
Explain, invite, model practice. So explaining to the children, hey, not everyone sees the world like we do, or I might even see it differently than you, and that's okay. What matters is how we treat people, even when we disagree. So make sure they really get it. Ask them to then say that back to you. So what are you hearing when I share that? How do you feel about that? Really invite them to sort of soak and marinate in that. And then you can invite from your children and say, hey, ask them, have you ever disagreed with a friend or teacher? What did you do? And hey, what could you try next time? What went well? What didn't go well? But you're inviting them to now explore, hey, because the whole goal is to disagree with connection. It's not to get them to agree all the time. It's one of these, when we're practicing this and bringing it home, you want to flush out the disagreement.
Mm-hmm.
So you can model and practice doing it differently. So the next thing is to model for your children, showing them calm disagreement in action. You want to let them see you listen and respond thoughtfully and stay connected. Model that for them. Show them what it's like so they can feel it in their bones, not just understand it in their heads.
And you can start small. You can start with, what's our favorite flavor of ice cream, or what's our favorite sport, or what team do we support in X, Y, and Z, and then elevate it up. And when they bring topics home that they're hearing, to really get curious, to really remind them to invite that conversation, and to spend a little time on it.
Exactly. And then the last thing is practice it as a family. role play tricky conversations. You can take on different parts. You can say, hey, you're going to play this person, this president, this teacher. Give them the opposite opinion, the opposite view, so they can see both. And then ask them, hey, what would compassion sound like here? What would compassionate disagreement sound like? Let your kids be the teacher sometimes too, and say, hey, I'm not sure how to navigate this. I have a friend who said this, this, and this, and I want to connect with them even though we disagree on this. How would you navigate this situation? And you ask them, and you're practicing it with them, and even role playing and say, hey, can you play me and I'm going to play my friend? And let your kids try and do it.
I think that's so empowering. We talk about differentiation and enmeshment in other episodes, and this is just one more example of how you help empower your kids through differentiation, through finding their space in the world in a way that cares for themselves and others, but doesn't blend them with others.
Exactly. So explain it, invite it, model it, and practice it.
I love that.
All right. Well, what's our one last thing before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think our one last thing for me today is our kids won't remember everything we say, but they sure do remember how we show up. And if we can remember that and really try and model showing up with care, with compassion, that would do wonders.
I love it. So if this episode resonated with you, please rate and review the podcast. It helps us reach more families doing this important work, and we'd love to hear your stories about staying connected through disagreement. You can write to us at parents@webetogether.com. Thanks for listening.